What do you do when you feel so alone in your relationship with your husband? You're being ignored intentionally or unintentionally, but your heart and soul are crying out. What options do you have? Well, today I will talk about how I use my planner for exactly these type of situations. Hey friend, do the daily demands of family life leave little time for self-care? Are you losing yourself in the process of caring for others? Are you ready to make self-care and healthy boundaries a natural part of your day while embracing your roles as a wife and mom? Well, I'm so glad you're here. I'm Christina, married 17 years to a neurodiverse man, mom of 3 neurodiverse kids, and many more roles. Welcome to the Moms and Neurodiverse Families podcast. Get ready to begin your self-care journey. Grab your planner and listen in as we take another small step towards a peaceful, healthier you. I was hiding. I was curled up in a ball, laying on the soft bathroom rug, door closed and locked, silently crying. My body was shaking with these deep emotions. And I felt so alone, completely alone. And the pain in my heart was so deep that I didn't think there was going to be ever a way to heal. What brought this on? This was from emotional needs that I had in my marriage, emotional and relational needs, which are very valid and very normal, that were not being met, and over years left such a wound, which honestly the enemy used to create more lies in my life. I felt completely hopeless. And after time passed, I was able to calm my mind, calm my brain, and it began making a plan. And I would love to say that that was just one time, but it was an ongoing situation. And at moments, I still can face the situation. But today, I would like to encourage you is what do you do when your emotional and relational needs are not being met? Does it mean it stinks to be us that we happen to get the short straw? No, I refuse to believe that. And first, let's talk though, like why do these situations come up? Now, you yourself may be neurodiverse and maybe your spouse is as well, or you're not neurodiverse, but your spouse is. There's many different variations of this formula, but it comes down that often your husband is unwilling, unable, or perplexed how to meet your emotional needs. Unwilling is a hardness of heart, as Dr. Jim Wilder would talk about, an enemy mode, refusing to do what is an expected action in a marriage relationship. The second option is that your husband is unable. This often is because of their neurodiversity and the rigidity that they are unable to truly meet that specific need. Maybe in other areas, maybe they can meet certain emotional and relational needs, but there's one area that they are not able to. I see this come up often in physical intimacy, or it can be in conversations, they're fine talking hours about their topic of interest, but the wife will share how the husband refuses to listen even for 5 minutes about something that's very close to her heart. And that unequalness, that inability for the giving and taking in a relationship is very hurtful to a woman. Now, the next one is perplexed. This is where your husband is willing to do it and he wants to do it. He just doesn't know how to go about it. Like he really just has no clue at all. Like he wants to be there for you, but it's like trying to assemble that IKEA desk, but everything is in Swedish for the instructions or whatever language they have it in, and you're looking at it trying to figure it out and you're so confused. So regardless of what that is, either way, whether it is an unwillingness, unable or they're perplexed, there's still an impact to our hearts. And what do you do with that? Now, we can talk more in the future. Let me know. Send me a message in Instagram or Facebook if you're interested in talking about what do you do in those 3 scenarios, because I feel that how you respond to your spouse in those situations are very different. However, if you've been in a neurodiverse marriage for a while, you'll know that there is no magical answer for this. So my focus today is really on how do you take care of yourself when it's not happening for whatever reason. So why is this even an important thing? Because if you go back to, I go back to like maybe 80 years ago, in the area that I grew up in, talking about emotions and emotional needs, taking vacations, all of that was like almost forbidden. We didn't talk about that. That wasn't something that was brought up. And as we become more aware, we realize that our emotional relational needs are very important. In fact, this is something important, and I hope just listening quickly. Our emotional relational needs not being met is a slow decay of ourselves. Again, it is a slow decay of ourself when we are not having our emotional and relational needs met, whether a person is single or whether they're married. Now, when we're single, we feel more ownership. But when we become married, we often think, well, I'm married. This is something my spouse should be meeting these needs. Quick caveat, our husbands, even though for some women that is their best friend, but they cannot be your female best friend. They are not going to relate to you in the same way as your female best friend does. They're not going to want to talk hours about redecorating your house. They're not going to talk hours about this complex problem you're having at work or maybe with the kids. Their abilities are going to be different. And then when you throw in neurodiversity, that's a whole different scheme. So we need to have realistic expectations that, yes, your husband may be your best friend, but he's not going to be your female best friend. I hope that makes sense. Also, we are complex human beings, and we are more than just physical needs. We're more than just needing food and needing sleep. We are made in the image of God, and we have relational needs. And when these needs are not met, there is so much research behind this, that it leads to depression and to burnout. And as I've talked about in the past, and I'm sure you're aware if you listen to my previous episodes, we women are very aware that if we cease to function, everything else in the house can fall apart, depending upon how independent your kids are and your spouse is in a neurodiverse family. Now, when I become sick at this current stage of life, things do fall apart, but nowhere near as quickly or as badly as when we went back 10 years ago. Things can somewhat function for about a day and a half or so before the wheels start coming off the house, per se. So it's important for us to meet our needs because, one, we feel responsible for our families. We want to be caring and loving wives and moms, but you cannot do that if we are on emotional empty. So how do we go about this? Okay, first, I'm going to challenge you. If you have a mindset that says it is just not possible, it's always going to be this way, nothing I do is going to change, this is what I've been dealt with and I just need to face it, that is the first step right there. That mindset is hurting you. And I've been there myself, so I'm speaking from personal experience. I have had that mindset where it was not possible. I didn't see any way there would be a solution. And realizing if you're a person of faith, that is the enemy who would love for you to be in that spot. If you're not a person of faith, that is toxic thinking. And you would be very quick to challenge your children or your best friend if they were talking that way. So why are you allowing yourself? Because then you're going to be exemplifying that concept to others around you. So whichever perspective you come in your faith, that needs to be confronted. Okay, next, I'm going to use my planner, which will be launching hopefully in 2026 by God's grace. That is what I have used for over more than 10 years to help myself and to also meet the needs of my family. And there are every month and every week, there are certain items that are listed for both the life roles of being a wife and mom that I have, but I'm specifically going to address the areas for my life needs and how I would write down that week. If I was going back in time, this is what I would write down that week for myself as a game plan. So one of the first things we have is faith. Faith is seen both as a life need and as a life role. We're as a disciple of Jesus and also being a beloved daughter of the Father. So in that, I would begin reading, I go to Psalms. Honestly, that is my first spot I go to when I am having a hard time is Psalms. Specifically, I can mention a couple of them, Psalms 4, 27, 37, and 91. That was 4, 27, 37, and 91. Those are just four of many of them that I have gone to when I mentioned before, and I was on the bathroom floor and I was just my body was racking with sobs and I was just crying. That is what I went to. And knowing that, trying to put my perspective in this situation of that I am loved and that I am cared for. If you're not a person of faith, this will be harder. I would suggest you would still read the Psalms. Even if you're not a person of faith, I would suggest just reading it and let your heart and mind be open. Now, next thing is mind. So in the mind category, what I would write down in my planner is, so there's a small section you can write down your to-do. So what I would write down is 5-minute quiet and rest. What that would mean is this. Instead of spiraling in my thoughts, instead of thinking these negative thoughts about my husband and how he is not doing this, or I wish he would do that, or again, he's did this, not helpful at all. Instead of spiraling, I am going to do at least every day 5 minutes of quiet and rest for my mind, which is in return is going to help my body. So when I say quiet and rest, I'm talking about going away from everyone else and just 5 minutes. It can be in a room. It could be in the bathroom. If you have to hide out in that bathroom, you go do that. It could be outside in the backyard. There's lots of different options, but 5 minutes, and you may need to play music in the background, or as I mentioned many times, I use the Pause app by John Eldridge, and there's another musical YouTube channel of piano music that I like to listen to. You may need to have something in the background so that your spiraling thoughts are just so loud. You need something to replace that, and that's when you need music. You're going away, and for 5 minutes, you're having quiet for every day that week. Now, even when things were chaotic, I mean, so chaotic for me, and even when those weeks do still pop up once in a while, I can still find 5 minutes. I can find that. Okay, number 2, the next one, or actually number 3, is health. Okay, so for health, for that week, I would write down, take a walk, not argue. So instead of me arguing with my husband, instead of trying to prove a point that I've tried multiple times in the past to prove, and it just hasn't gone well, and we both seem to be in enemy mode towards each other, instead, I'm going to take a walk. Now, depending upon your kids and their challenges, it may be a walk around your house. If there is ability for you to be gone longer, it might be a 10-minute walk around the neighborhood. If you cannot leave your house, I suggest you go into a room and you do jumping jacks. It's kind of funny, but do 20 jumping jacks. That movement can help your body and your brain so much. So I hope you're starting to see here, we are not doing one action and we're doing something else instead. Okay, next one, community. Number 4. For under the community on my planner, I would write down, talk to Joy. So that would be Joy in this situation would be a friend. And you're looking in a friend situation, you're looking for someone who's objective, but also empathetic. You do not need someone who is just going to be an echo chamber for you. That's not helpful at all. You don't need someone who is going to be bringing you down more. At the same time, you don't need a person who's like, hey, everything's going to be fine. You just need to just stick with it and think positive thoughts and it's all going to be great. No, you need someone who is objective and empathetic. So instead of ruminating, so that's what we're not doing. We're not going to be ruminating on how hard our life is and how difficult. We do need to process that. But ruminating is when we're digging a trench down. We're digging a big hole and we are just wallowing in that dirt. It is not helpful at all. because there's no positive outcome from doing that. Processing your emotions, there's a positive outcome. Ruminating, there's not a positive outcome. So instead, you're talking to a friend. Now, you might say, Christina, I don't have anyone. My family is toxic. My life is so restrictive that I have hardly any friends. Hey, I understand. I remember when I only had 2 people in my life besides some supportive family that I could reach out to. So my suggestion is that you search out a support group. There's some that are in person, and I will put a link in for that. There's also online in Facebook. There is one particular group that I would suggest that is very positive and looking at what steps can you do. Sometimes being with other women, and even if you're just doing it digitally through the computer, it can be very helpful to know you are not alone. Finally, we have the last category that I would have in my planner, and it's listed as enjoy. And this one is, instead of your doom scrolling or numbing myself by watching TV, what I would write down in this section would be read book and then maybe like -T. So what I would do here is that I would read a book for 20 minutes, and this may have to be after the kids are in bed, but I would curl up with a cup of cocoa or with tea, your favorite drink. I would maybe play some music in the background. Depending upon the sensitivity of your family members, you might have to go into the car even. You might have to get super creative. But you are going to find a spot where you can read a book and have a favorite beverage and play some music. If you're able to do it in your house, maybe you're playing off of YouTube some of the aesthetic videos they have of fall leaves. Or maybe if this is Christmas time, you're watching like a winter scene. Making it a moment where you're just not just reading a book, but you have multiple things. You have a drink, you have background sound. Maybe you're even lighting a candle, or you're using one of those battery operated candles. My point being is that you're taking something that is simple and you're making it into a moment you can really enjoy for 20 minutes. Maybe it is knitting, or it can be painting or drawing, but something for 20 minutes that you are doing. You're intentionally saying, this week, I am going to do this. And it may even be a daily activity at the end of each day. But we're not, instead of doom scrolling and looking at all the different people's events in their life, you are doing something that's giving back to you. Because when we numb ourselves, that's another part of a slow decay of ourselves. And so we are choosing things that are giving life and that are helping us. Now, quick caveat here. These were small sections of time that I've mentioned. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. And not that you're doing all of those things every single day. There might be some that you are, but others, like as such as reading the Bible and taking 5 minutes of daily quiet time. But talking to a friend, that may not be a daily activity. But either way, to say yes to yourself in these areas, even though these are small chunks of time, you will need to say no in another area. I know. That can feel a little stress there, right? A little anxiety coming up. And just to be clear, I'm not saying you're saying no to your sleep, reducing your amount of sleep, not at all. What I'm saying is that, one, we're saying no to toxic methods that we have used in the past. As I mentioned before, our mental spiraling out of control, arguing, ruminating, doom scrolling, all those things, they were numbing us and causing us to stay into problems. There was no solution to those activities. But by reading Psalms, by taking daily 5 minutes of quiet and rest for your mind, taking a walk, talking to a friend, reading a book, all those things are giving back to you and are meeting needs that you have. While this per se is not meeting romantic needs, oftentimes romance is filled with time together with other people. It's having aesthetic pleasing environment where you're able to connect with someone else. So you remove the romance love part of it and you look at everything else that's involved. When you go on a date, oftentimes we look at being at a restaurant or at a place that has a great aesthetic to it. You're providing aesthetics into your life. Part of the reason why we like to go on dates is the fact that we are connecting with someone else. So by having a community, you're connecting with another person. Granted, it's not romantic, but there are ways we have our emotional, relational needs that can be met while still honoring our marriage, not doing anything that's against our vows, but we can still have those feelings of wanting to be known, to be special, to be met in ways in a community and with friends, and we can find ways that we can create a beautiful life, even if our spouse is not able to at that moment. Also, besides saying no to toxic methods, we're also saying no to overfunctioning. So pick one area of your life right now you are overfunctioning. And that could be having the kitchen completely cleaned or doing something. Usually this is the biggest one, doing something for another person in your family that they themselves can do. I know that's hard. And this is a lot of stuff here. But when you say no to doing something for overfunctioning and doing something for someone else, you can say yes to yourself. So final question here. What difference would there be in your life if you saw to your needs? What difference would it be in your life? And what impact would it have on your mind and your heart? I think, actually, I know for personal experience, when there were those moments and I did this, I found I'm a valuable human being made in the image of God, worthy of taking this time. And I began restoring my mind to rightful thinking and not to bitter, toxic thoughts. And I felt better, completely better. So I hope that this gives you an example of how you can, what can you realistically do if you're in a situation, like I mentioned before, with your husband, for whatever reason. What can you do? This is an example of 1 week that you are taking care of yourself. And I would love to hear from you if you'd like me to talk more about situations where a spouse is unwilling, unable, or perplexed, how to meet your needs. Hey, thank you for joining me today. I pray this episode gave you encouragement to take one small step. If so, please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help other women find this show. By the way, if you're loving this conversation and want more encouragement like this, join my email list at bit.ly/myselfcare. That is bit.ly/myselfcare. I have a planner launching soon that will help you put all this into action in your own life. I look forward to chatting with you again next week for another episode.